This is it. It's championship weekend on the Road of Champions. Welcome to the Road to Champions. I'm your host, Brian Sweeney, the voice of the Women's Football Alliance Pro Division National Championship game. Back on April 26th, 55 teams took to the field in the hopes of making it this far to Canton, Ohio and National Championship weekend. Now only 6 teams remain, but before we look at these matchups, let's review the conference championship results. In Division III, the Richmond Black Widows are the National Conference champions with an impressive win over the Connecticut Ambush by a final score of 45-14. And the American Conference Championship went to the Oklahoma Rage, who were victorious over the Rocky Mountain Thundercats 20-14. Alex Westhead is back in studio with me as always. Alex, these were 2 very exciting games. Did the final results of either game surprise you?
Not too much. I said 2 weeks ago on this program, Brian, I said that we were going to see 2 games that oftentimes featured a home team winning and coming away with a decided result. We saw that in the east side of the conference with a big win for Richmond in the National, becoming what all of a sudden seems to be a representation of the District, Maryland, and Virginia in the National Championships here in Canton, Ohio this weekend. But what's more striking to me is the back and forth affair between Oklahoma and Rocky Mountain Thundercats. You have to look at this as a way for iron to sharpen iron and for Oklahoma to be in a spot to give Richmond a good fight. This should be a good matchup, the number 1 and the number 2 teams in the Massey ratings for Division III teams. I really am curious to see what happens because in these Division III games, Brian, we see either a very close defensive battle or we see a lopsided affair one way or the other just because there's not a lot of familiarity between the 2 teams. We could see that here this weekend, but I think on Friday what we will see with the temperature expected in Canton on Friday, a game affected by the elements that will take a full 60-minute effort either way.
And in the Division II Conference Championships, the American Conference Championship went to the Salt Lake Wildcats with a big win over the New Mexico Bonitas 68-6. And in the National Conference, the Baltimore Nighthawks are conference champions by taking down the Cincinnati Cougars 29-28. Alex, your thought on the Division II games?
Well, again, 2 games where you expect a home team to win out, and that's what we saw here. Let's first talk about the game in Division II that I thought was going to be the closest and ended up being the closest. Baltimore and Cincinnati. For Baltimore finally being able to get over the hump. Good for them. They get to make it to Canton, Ohio, and they get to finally put their name on the map in Division II with a good win in a back-and-forth affair against a Cincinnati team that I think we had tagged to be in Canton for this championship weekend, but they came up just a little bit short. A good effort by Cincinnati, but Baltimore finally got over that hump. The big question is Salt Lake over New Mexico, a game that I expected to be closer, and largely for that first quarter was. You know, we didn't have the best ability to be able to view this game in terms of a full, all 22 type package, but when you look at the outcome of this game, it's still what Salt Lake has done all season long. They put a lot of points on the board, and they get their offense going quickly. It should be very exciting this weekend.
In the Pro Division American Conference Championship, for the 3rd straight year, the Minnesota Vixen played on the road versus the Slam in St. Louis. And for the 3rd straight year, it was St. Louis coming away with the win, this time 38-13. Alex, although you did not come out and say Minnesota would win this game, you did say that you would not be surprised to see the Vixen in St. Louis. Were you surprised to see that in the 3 meetings this year, this was the largest margin of victory that St. Louis had over Minnesota?
I was massively surprised. Brian, you and I were texting back and forth over the course of this game, and the thing that was surprising to me, I said 2 weeks ago that yes, I would not be surprised if Minnesota won, but I wasn't expecting it because St. Louis is a team that scores a touchdown, a second, a third, and they put teams away with their running game. That is exactly what they did in this contest. They got those early touchdowns, and they were able to put a team away and not give Minnesota a chance to come back into this game. You think early on, the first offensive drive for St. Louis, Minnesota gets an interception in their own defensive end zone, and then does nothing with it. Is that a game-turning play? Maybe, but you got to take some points out of it. You got to be able to get things going. And for Minnesota, their credit, the receivers were open. The lanes for the running backs were open, but it just wasn't crisp enough for Minnesota in that first and second quarter that by the time you start putting points on the board, St. Louis does what they do best. They run the ball up the middle, and they make you make a play, and they just couldn't get Minnesota to get an extra chance on Saturday.
And in the Pro Division National Conference Championship, after splitting the regular season a game each, the DC Divas went back to Pittsburgh with hopes of winning the rubber match. The Passion led at the end of the first, second, and third quarters, but the Divas had the lead when it mattered and handed Pittsburgh their second straight conference championship loss, 35-34. Alex, we have seen some great coaching by Pro Division coaches in the 2025 season. Your take on Alicia Marfel going for 2 and the win, and Congiali's performance when down in the fourth quarter.
I was, again, texting back and forth with you and somebody else. I was excited at the way that this game ended. Not just because of the aggressive play calling. I love the aggressive play calling. Not just because, yeah, DC has a kicking game. We'll talk more about that in the WFA Pro Championship preview. But in an opportunity where football is a game of momentum, and so frequently when you have a team that's on the ropes, think about Pittsburgh goes up 3 scores, goes for the onside kick, and recovers it. That game should be over at that point. When you have the ability and you're up 3 scores and you have a running game, you need to be able to close out those teams. And frankly, for Pittsburgh, they just didn't get it done. But if there's anything we've learned, and we've said it before, Amanda Congialdi, if you give her time, she will make you pay for it. And time again, she did. You think about, too, Pittsburgh, again, not the way they want their season to end. They had some injuries over the back half of that game. Specifically, the one that I look at was Hannah Niedermeyer on the defensive line. That changed the game, certainly for the ground game for DC. And you sit there and you wonder what could have been for Pittsburgh in what ultimately, in my opinion, is a disappointing season.
We'll be right back to look at the national championship matchups. Welcome back. National Championship Weekend is here. Let's start by looking at the Division III Championship matchup. 2 teams with perfect records are set to battle it out when the Richmond Black Widows face off against the Oklahoma Rage. This game will air Friday, July 25th at 2:30 p.m. Eastern on the All Women's Sports Network. Alex, these 2 teams have a combined 532 points scored this season, and in the 16 games played, 11 shutouts. Do you see this as an offensive shootout or a defensive stalemate?
For both of these teams, and when you look at the weather matchup that's expected in Canton, Ohio, Friday afternoon, you're looking at a temperature of 94. Typically, you look at Richmond, Virginia, and you look at Oklahoma, and you'd say, well, that's temperatures typical of this time of year in those areas. The big difference maker, though, is the heat and the humidity down on that turf. It is an oven, to say the very least. And so when you have that kind of a weather situation and you have 2 teams with that combined 11 shutouts this season, it's tough to look at both of these offenses and say, well, they're going to be stymied, they're going to not be able to put points on the board, because typically when the temperature goes up, the offense goes up because the defense loses the focus. And because of the hydration factor that has to play in that, you tend to look at that and say, well, offenses might carry the day. We'll see what happens here. I think 11 different shutouts is a big stat line here. When you look at 16 total games between these 2 teams, 11 of those 16 being shutouts, leads you to believe that the defense is going to show up on Friday afternoon. But that weather just becomes all the more important in a game that really, again, to me, could go either way.
And in the Division II National Championship, 2 more undefeated teams square off when the Salt Lake Wildcats meet the Baltimore Nighthawks. This game will air Friday, July 25th at 6:30 p.m. Eastern on the All Women's Sports Network. Alex, the Wildcats were the highest scoring team in the WFA this season and spent some time on top of the Massey ratings over all Pro Division teams as well. Baltimore is having their first perfect season since the COVID-canceled year. Which team will win it all and move on to the Pro Division in 2026?
Well, let's start, Brian, first with that second point. When you look at Salt Lake, I think they're already there. I think that the WFA, regardless of how this game goes, looks at Salt Lake and has a very difficult conversation because, yes, number one team in the Massey rating, best offense in the league, and their defense is above average for a Division II team and what we expect a Division II team to be. The problem I think that there is going to be is this lightning in a bottle? Is this a one-year incident where all of a sudden if you push them up next year, do they get pounded by Cali? Do they get pounded by Nevada? Do they get pounded by Mile High? I can't imagine they would because they have wins against Pro Division teams already and convincing wins at that. So I don't think, to me, that's not a big of an issue. The question is, though, is Baltimore going to be joining them? And the Baltimore Nighthawks, since we've gotten into this postseason run, Brian, we've talked about how this Baltimore Nighthawk team has been close but hasn't been able to get over the hump. Now that they are in a championship game, now that they're in Canton, Ohio, this is the most difficult test for them. And it's funny because they've played Pro Division teams already this year. But this Salt Lake Wildcat team is just built different. There's something that's different about them. Due to journalistic integrity, Brian and I will be on the call for that game on Friday night. I'm not going to pick a winner, but I think it comes down to, can Baltimore match what Salt Lake does? If Salt Lake is able to get into a shootout, they win. But if Baltimore is able to match for point, possession for possession, anything's possible in Canton, Ohio on a Friday night.
Lois Cook is back with her final interview of the season where she sits down with the stars of the WFA Pro Division this week with Carrie McMahon of the St. Louis Slam in her segment, A Timeout with Lo.
Carrie McMahon, wide receiver for the St. Louis Slam.
Snap is up, but no, they're not going to punt it. It is a fake, and what a great job it is, as she's going to find plenty of room to move down the field. That's Carrie McMahon that's going to bring it in for a St. Louis Slam touchdown.
So talking about the WFA, how do you feel about this league and how has it been for you? How's the experience?
Amazing experience. Frankly, the WFA opened a door that I thought was permanently closed. I grew up, football was always my first love. Played it every single day at recess. Every time I got the opportunity with my dad, we were throwing the ball around the backyard. So yeah, to be able to live out a childhood dream of putting on some shoulder pads and a helmet and going out there in the football field, I mean, I thought that I'd never get that opportunity.
What's your biggest accomplishment with the WFA?
I mean, the easiest answer is winning the national championship this past season. Our team overcame a lot of adversity. I was really, really proud of some of our players that stepped up and built some roles in for some injured players. I mean, it took every single one of us in that game. So just to have that experience and to win on that stage, I mean, that's always really special.
Play of the drive now, 10 minutes of time off the clock.
This time it's a pass to the end zone, and it's in the hands of McMahon, and the St. Louis Slam are pulled into the lead over the Boston Renegades.
Football is the most diverse set of skills in any sport. I mean, you need speed, you need strength, you need mental intellect, and then, frankly, you need some crazy, too.
Where can we find your jersey?
Well, there's one in my suitcase. No, I was really fortunate to find out after the game that after winning MVP and after the team winning that my jersey was going to hang in the Canton Football Hall of Fame. I think that's a testament to the leadership in the WFA that they're able to have that partnership with Canton. And it's also a testament to the folks down in Canton, Ohio, the Pro Football Hall of Fame as well. And just a great opportunity for us to expand our sport and to get a little bit of notoriety. And for me personally, it's a really exciting opportunity to commemorate our team win.
Talk me through the feelings. What were the feelings that you had when you found out that was happening?
With the jersey?
Yep.
I thought Lisa was kidding. They announced my name to get the award, so walked up, shook her hand, she said, I need your jersey after the game as soon as I go up in Canton. And I was like, oh, good one. And she was like, no, I'm serious, like I need your jersey. So it was really cool. I really didn't think about it until after the game. In that moment, you're just celebrating with your teammates, and you're just so happy you won, and to have that experience down on the field. But the next couple of days to kind of reflect on that, and again, I'm living out my childhood dream, getting to play football, and I idolize the guys in the NFL. And I get to do it now, and to have it up in Canton, it's really special.
When we come back, we will look at the Pro Division National Championship matchup. Now let's look at the Pro Division National Championship matchup. Having won 3 national championships at the D2 level, the St. Louis Slam made the move to pro after the COVID-canceled season of 2020. This year they look to win their second straight Pro Division championship in 3 attempts. Their opponent is the DC Divas, the only team playing for a championship this year that is not undefeated. However, in their 25th season, the Divas are looking to return to their greatness and add a 4th championship to their storied history. These 2 teams will meet at 2 p.m. Eastern live on ESPN2. Alex, these arguably are 2 of the best quarterbacks that will be going head-to-head that we have seen in a number of years. Combined, they have over 2,800 yards this season and 41 touchdowns. I'm excited to be on the call for this game.
Well, I'm excited as always to be on it with you. It's what is this, our 4th year in a row now doing the championship game together. Always a blast. Certainly being on ESPN2 with you, Brian, so I'm looking very much forward to that. I'm also looking forward to the quarterback play. When we think about this matchup that's happened before, and I mean, we can go back over the course of the last 4 years head-to-head about great quarterback matchups. This is one that is intriguing for a lot of different reasons. First and foremost, this is a DC and St. Louis game that has not happened before. It's the first time that these 2 teams are playing each other. And when I looked at the research and when I went and did my digging to try to find out information to be prepared for this game, I was surprised to hear that. Because you think of the longevity of the Divas, you think of the success of the Slam, you would have expected that there would have been a matchup in there somewhere, but there hasn't been yet. And I think that that's a really exciting facet to talk about this game. But the quarterback play specifically is obviously always a focal point, but in this game perhaps more so as well. Amanda Congialdi, Jamie Gall, 2 quarterbacks that I've said throughout the season have been having MVP style of seasons, but this time it's the best against the best. Congialdi has been good, Gall has been better, specifically for Jamie Gall. The 25-0 touchdown interception ratio is game breaking. We've talked about before, Allison Cahill's jersey should be in Canton, Ohio someday. Maybe Jamie Gall's working her way into that conversation as well. She's been dominant this season. She's been elite. The 62% passing percentage is what it is. You have a lot of factors that go into it. But when you look at the yardage and the touchdowns, this is a tough matchup for DC. One that they haven't really had, and I think the big question for me going into this game, Brian, is the DC Divas defense. Do they have enough to match up with St. Louis in the Slam? Because like we talked about with Minnesota, St. Louis is a team that gets a score, a second, a third ahead, and they put teams away. DC, we've seen them come from behind in 3-score games before, but St. Louis doesn't let that happen because they are so good at controlling the clock and so good at controlling the game. The head here in this one says that the money is on St. Louis, that St. Louis is likely to win. The heart says that DC keeps it close and keeps it in it. But the sicko in me says that there's a lot of crazy things that could happen in the field on Canton, Ohio on Saturday. And I'm really encouraged to see just what they are, because this is a close competitive matchup. On paper, let's see if it is on the gridiron.
The awards for the 2025 season have been announced. Coach of the Year went to Sean Getz of the Salt Lake Wildcats. On the offensive side of the ball, congratulations to Jana Meister of the Pittsburgh Passion and Jamie Gall of the St. Louis Slam. Defensively, the award went to Danacia, or D. Harris as she likes to go by, of the Pittsburgh Passion, and Leilani Kamal of the Mile High Blaze. And the MVP awards went to Amanda Congialdi of the DC Divas and Carrie McMahon of the St. Louis Slam. The final award is the league MVP, and that award went to Brianna Spidey Barrett of the Cali War. Alex, I for one am glad that I did not have to decide who won these awards. I do, however, agree with these selections 100%. Your thoughts on these award winners?
As do I. I think that all the positions here, all of the award winners are all the kind of players that we expected to be in these roles. Maybe you flip, a player here or there, but I think all of these are basically spot on. Brianna Barrett had the best season. We've said before, Brianna Barrett was the best athlete on the field for the WFA this season. Obviously, you would have liked to have seen her go a little bit further in the playoffs, but these awards mean so much to these players, so much to these fans, and congratulations, of course, to every player who earned an award this season.
Road to Champions is looking for a sponsor for the 2026 season. If you own a business and would like the show named after your business, please reach out to us for pricing and more information at roadofchampions@gmail.com. It has been a pleasure bringing you this season's episodes, and we already have great things in store for 2026, including expanded coverage of the D2 and D3 levels. For Lois Cook and Alex Westhead, I'm Brian Sweeney, and we'll see you next season on the Road of Champions.